Warning, if you're faint of heart or easily offended, this show is not for you.
Struggling to find an all-in-one platform for the latest poker news and thrilling poker stories? Only Poker has got you covered. The platform is packed with exciting poker news, discussions, and games that you won't be able to resist. Share your thoughts with friends on the hottest poker topics in our circle. Discover the best poker games anytime, anywhere, and secure your seat at the table. Find all your poker needs in one place. Download Only Poker and join the best poker community today.
All right, welcome. This is the Nick Vertucci Show. I am Nick Vertucci, and I am here with Alec Torelli.
What's going on?
11th place in the main event. Is it pretty, is that surreal or what, bro?
It's very surreal, especially because, as I imagine most players of my generation that came up, I'm 36. It's been 20 years since Moneymaker won the main, and that was the impetus for why I got into poker.
Yeah.
And so the dream was not anything other than a deep run in the main event. Like that was what created the poker boom, and that became the dream of my generation. And so to come up with that dream of that elusive bracelet, and I remember, and I talked about this recently, just like if you could have the bracelet or the money, what would you choose? And like, the purist in me, the purist of the poker player, always said, the bracelet was more meaningful because that was the dream I grew up with. I never grew up with the dream of I want to make a certain amount of money because I want to win first place. It was because I wanted to be the best player. I want to win first place. And that was the purist in me. So coming up with that dream and then being able to get very close is obviously very challenging in a different way. And we could talk about that. It's very bittersweet.
To get to that.
But in a lot of ways, the dream was realized in the sense that, I made a deep run in the main. I got to play on the big stage, the feature table. I got to experience what it was like to be there, watching the players I grew up watching, and then to be there was it was incredibly surreal. I just really truly was enjoying every moment.
So let me ask you this. Well, first let me say this. If anyone wants to know more about Alec, we did an episode. Do you remember that was? I don't. Some months back.
You could Google Alec Torelli, Nick Vertucci.
Yeah, just
you'll
go
find
to the
it.
Nick Vertucci Show.
It was in March or April of 2023.
Yeah,
so not too long ago.
Yeah, so if you want to know the whole backstory about how Alec got into poker, I mean, it's so interesting. We talked for a long time about the back stuff, but so we're not going to do that today. So I have a question off of what you said. See how purist you are.
Yeah. Okay.
Second place.
Yeah.
7 million.
Yeah.
First
6
place.
million.
No, forget that.
Oh, okay. Okay. You're all right.
I'm making shit up. Second place, 6 million. Wow, I was even close. I didn't even realize that. Second place, 6 million, 7 million, whatever. First place, bracelet, title forever, 900,000.
This might be a loaded answer, but I also think that
No, don't bullshit.
No, but I wanted to clarify the answer why I think first place would be pretty easy choice, just because I think winning is also has a lot of lifetime utility that would net you more than the 5 million delta that you're saying.
Sponsorships and
like
other
just
revenue.
Right. So it's like it's almost what's the premium on that lifetime, right?
Right.
So that's almost like it's almost cheating the answer that you're asking.
Okay, no premium.
Yeah.
You get the 900, nobody wants to talk to you because you're ugly.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk to you.
So yeah, no one wants to rep you at all.
You
won and you
sucked out and hit claws.
Don't like you. Yeah. So okay, so they don't like you. Your 900 is your cap.
I think it's tempting now to say the utility of the 7 million is so great, and that's like it's the responsible answer to take that. And it's like
the answer. We know what the response.
It's almost like arrogant to take the other option. But I also think if you look at regret minimization, and I look at the end of my life, the 80-year-old Alec looking back at the 36-year-old Alec, what would he be more proud of? What would be more meaningful? What would he look back on with more joy? What would make him smile at 80 years old? I think the W. So I hope I'd have the courage to take the W. but I could see how that would be a very challenging choice.
Fair.
I don't know what I would do
courage.
unless I was in the situation.
You would need courage.
And
I wouldn't know what to do.
I wouldn't know what to do. And I believe life is one of those things where it's easy to say, oh, I would act this way in that situation. But until you're in the situation where the choice is yours and the shot clock's called on you, you don't know how you would behave, right? And that's like the way that poker hands work, right? So it's like I know what I would want to say, but
no, I mean that you're being.
I tried
fair.
to give an honest answer.
I think you're being fair. That is pretty honest. Okay, we're gonna get to like your journey through this. We're gonna talk about all that.
Wild.
It's but real quick before we're kind of jumping forward first, and I don't know why I feel like doing that, but I do. At one point when you were down, let's say within 15, were you like, holy shit, I could win this damn thing? Like, when did it hit you, like where you were like, oh my God? Or did it?
I mean, so we're jumping forward, but this will take us backwards too. I really tried to go into the main event believing that I could win. That was my goal, to go into the main. So I kind of psyched myself up so much for the main that like I was going to make a deep run.
Yeah.
Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that it would allow me to align myself, my behavior, and my actions with my desired outcome. So it's like you're navigating a boat across the sea. You know you're going this direction. So I put my mind on the focus of I could win the main event.
You saw it. You were visualizing.
I was visualizing it, 3-4 months
That's
before.
not arrogant.
And I'll tell you the story of how we got there when we get into it. But basically, starting after I busted this tournament in Monaco, I set my sights on the main, and like every day I would just imagine myself at the final table, how I would act, how I would behave, the stresses I would experience, how I was going to overcome it, how I was going to remain calm and play. So I was kind of in this peak state of like imagining myself winning the main for 3 months before it. So it more felt surreal that I was experiencing what I was imagining I was going to experience for a very long time.
Right.
The moment that
like you were there before.
It was like I was there. It was like, oh, of course this is happening because I already prepared for this to happen in a weird sort of, again, non-arrogant way, but just in a sort of like surreal way. But it really did. I also really tried to stay present of like not focusing on what I was going to say if I win, or the outcome, or the money, or the bracelet, or how my life was going to change if I win, and just trying to remain present of like, what is the next thing I need to do to get me from where I am through the next hand. And that's really hard to do. And I remember a talk Dario San Martino is a good friend of mine sent me in like day 4, day 5 of the main about this Indian guy that was talking to the public about how they were going to win the cricket championship. And it was talking about, the basic thing you need to do is hit the ball. Yeah. And it's like, there's so many things to focus on that could distract you from how to win, but the only way to win is to hit the ball better than the other team.
Right.
And so that really stuck with me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to really try and stay focused on just like how to play the next hand, what the strategy is, what the stacks are, what my table is, what my seat draw is. So I didn't really allow myself to go there that much while I was playing. It was honestly, in a weird way, happening more when I was in Italy before the main event, that I was feeling like I could win.
Yeah.
When I was in the heat of the moment, I was so focused on how do I just adapt my strategy that I didn't think about it that much.
Yeah, I get it.
And I think that helped me, because if I let myself go to, I'm going to win the main, it's like, it's just distracting from what you need to do right now to get from hand A to hand B.
There was something that I used to say when I was actually teaching real estate, because part of being successful in anything is a lot of what you're saying. And I used to have a thing that I made up that it said, see it, believe it, map it, and then execute it. So you got to be able to see it. Like you said, you put yourself there, you're visualizing it, but then you do have to believe it. Like you have to go, okay, I'm going to do this.
Right.
Mapping it would be all the study.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you put in.
Right.
And executing is what you're saying, staying focused. And you've already saw it, you've already believed it, you already had the strat, you've already mapped it. Now you just have to execute piece by piece until you get to the end zone.
It's like staying aligned with where you want the boat to go, because ultimately there's a lot of setbacks during an 8-day journey of the main. Your stack goes from 60 bigs to 20 bigs. And it's like, hey, that's a boulder in the road, or an iceberg on the way for your boat to get to where it wants to go. And it's like, instead of focusing on how catastrophic it is, there's an iceberg in front of you, you need to start paddling very hard to go around it. And so I tried to like realign myself with the destination of where I was going. And it really calmed me down, because I had many moments where, on the bubble, I played a very exploitative strategy on the bubble on day 3, and I tried to chip
on the
up
bubble for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had a big edge, and I could exploit the fact that people wanted to cash, and I was willing to take risks. Right. And it completely backfired. I just got
really?
Yeah, I just got wrecked on the bubble. Yeah, wow. I made like a couple 3 bets. I got 4 bet, and just
People are like, hey man, I want to win it too.
And it's just there's some luck, right? Like
Yeah.
I could have just ran into top of range. I could have ran into strong hands. I could have got bad turn cards and I C bet and it didn't work. I just lost like half my stack on the bubble, which is the opposite of what I would expect to happen on average most of the time. There was a lot of other setbacks in the main too, bad beats and all these things happen, of course. But it was mainly just about staying with the destination of where I was trying to go and saying, okay, if I know I'm going to get to the final table, I know I'm going to get to day 8 of the main, how would I behave right now? And so that kind of changed my energy and I changed my focus and said, okay, well, I know this is just part of the journey. The journey's not going to be straight and linear. So how can I change my strategy and behavior right now, knowing where I'm going? And that really calmed me down and helped me stay focused.
Oh, that's good. It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good to hear and for people to hear. So the year before you played a main in Monaco. Is that what you said? You played what?
The last main I played was 2019. And
what was the Monaco?
I went to, so I left after our interview. I, was played a few more shows on the Hustler. I left in April to go back to Italy where my wife is, and we stayed with her family there. And so on the way to Italy, we stopped in Monaco. And so I went to play the EPT finals, the European Poker Tour final main event in Monaco.
That's what I meant, main event in Monaco.
Yeah. I sorry. Yeah. So I got to day 2. I had a big stack and I took.
Was the buy-in 10K?
5K with a rebuy, one rebuy. So I was in for 10K. It was for 10K for me, not 10K for everyone. But I was in for 10K. I get to day 2. I played very well on the second day 1 and through day 2 as well. And I get to a spot where I have a big stack and I take a high variance line that's marginal and I bust with jacks.
Wow.
And I also busted the main event of 2019 with jacks.
What'd you bust this year with?
And I busted this main event with jacks. So I busted the last 3 tournaments I played, I busted with jacks. Anyway.
Don't play jacks.
It's like, I was so mad at myself and I was like so upset that I allowed this situation to transpire. Even if you could argue that it was a reasonable way to play the hand, I just wouldn't accept that I had a big stack and busted, which I just couldn't accept it. I was so upset at myself. I spent hours on this hand. I talked to like multiple people. I talked to like 6 people about it. And I just went home after that event in Monaco in early May. And I was so fired up. I was like, I'm going to make a deep run in the main. Like this is never going to happen again to me.
When you ran that hand through the machine, everything, what did you play it right?
There's some frequency with which you could play it the way I played it. Yeah. But like a solver's so silly because you can use a solver to justify anything because it has frequencies.
This 30%.
Right. And it's like, well, this was part of the 10% that.
So how do you really, I've often thought that's kind of nonsense.
It is nonsense.
Okay.
And it's honestly become a justification for a random high variance play because the solver will do something 7% of the time.
Right.
And you could be like, well, this was the 7% that I just punted it off. That's all dumb. Anyway, I couldn't forgive myself for this hand. I still think about it today. I was just so upset at myself that I went home and all summer I basically made it a mission to go deep in the main. And so for 3 months, 2 months, I just thought about how would I behave if I was at the final table of the main? Like what would I be doing right now if I knew I was going to be at the final table of the main? So that really changed my approach in the summer. Started playing online tournaments, started running all the sims, started studying all the short stack play, the reshoves, and like just basically played all through the summer online, ran all the sims, talked to friends and strategy. I was in the gym 5-6 days a week, meditating, visualizing, just preparing for this moment of being deep in the main because I really believed that like this could happen. And one thing I had to do was just like change my relationship with tournaments and luck because I've mainly played high stakes cash in my career, mainly because if you look at the math, the variance in tournaments make it such that it's very hard to create a sustainable long-term business plan because I talked to a friend of mine, a great player. He went 0 for 40 in the WSOP this summer. He's like long-time tournament pro. And it's just like, imagine going 0 for 40.
Yeah.
Or he like min cash twice, but it's basically 0 for 38 or whatever. So because of that, I mainly stuck to high stakes cash. And if you look at the variance in tournaments, you can have 1,000 distributions and 700 of them are losing and maybe only 1 or 2 of them result in you making the final table or winning. So how do I get myself to a point where I know I'm going to be at the final table, right? You talked about believing it. How do I get to the point where I believe it when there's luck involved and there's things beyond my control? And I had to kind of like rectify this all summer. I had to like juggle with this all summer. And so I decided that I'm not going to believe that external circumstance impacts my outcome. Like it might be delusional, but I can't believe that if I'm going to believe that I could be at the final table, because you can't believe that there's things beyond your control and that you're going to have a certain result. So I decided, okay, what would tournament poker look like if I could not use the justification, right? Maybe there is luck, but I cannot use the justification that luck exists. Right. How would my relationship with tournament poker change? How would my strategy change? How would my mindset change? So I realized a couple things from like a really tangible perspective. I was like, okay, a lot of times in tournament poker, the justification people make is it's a cooler. And so I was like, how would strategy look like if there were no coolers? Like what if I played my hands in a way that I didn't allow myself to be all in a spot where most people were all in? So for example, I remember I was day 6 of the main. I had ace king in the hijack. I opened the button 3 bets, and I knew that I had the option to 4 bet, and if he jams, I have to call. But now I'm all in with ace king against jacks, and there's luck involved in that circumstance. So what if I just flatted and maybe played the hand in a different way? Or what if I didn't allow myself to be all in these certain spots? So I completely changed the way I thought about tournaments and my strategy. And I also realized that I need to accumulate a lot of chips in the main.
Okay, that last piece. So slow down. I want to really, because that's interesting to me. What's the layman's term takeaway from what you just said? You said a lot, and I get it, but do you know how to, the last part, can you put that in a layman's terms, like what you said? Like
basically, we talked about GTO and justifying plays and standard operations. There's a lot of spots in poker where people just assume there's a default way to play a hand, right? That because the solver plays it this way, you have to play it this way. But in a tournament, it doesn't really necessarily work like that, because the risk reward is very different. Like if you win chips, it doesn't help you as much as losing chips hurts you. So getting all in these high variance spots where there's flips involved when you have like ace king to jacks is very, very bad. Like you don't want to be in that spot, especially if you're in the main, there's 2-hour levels, you have an edge, and you want to go deeper. So I avoided a lot of these spots based on the way that I played my hands. So like
you avoided variance, you avoided spots that were flips.
Exactly. I tried to avoid those situations where, hey, if I bet this turn and the guy raises, I have to call.
Right.
And I don't want to call it off I don't want to be in that spot. So there was a lot of times where I just avoided the situation. And my strategy was this. Okay, if I get to the river, there is no more luck, right? Like I either have the best hand or I don't. And if I make the right decision, I cannot lose.
Right.
So I just thought to myself, in all of these spots, if I get deeper down the game tree, if I get further through the hand, the more information I have, if I'm in position with the lead and a strong hand, and I have more information about my opponent, what they're doing, there's a very likely chance I'm going to make a very high EV decision. So instead of being 57-43, I might be 90-10. Because I'm so certain that my hand is right or wrong, or I should bluff, or I shouldn't bluff, or I should bet half pot or full pot or a quarter pot, or I should bet small and induce a bluff. Like I'm so sure about what the right play is that I'm going to reduce a lot the impact of luck on my outcome. So I basically reshaped the way I thought about and played tournaments. And there were a lot of spots where I did things that were non-standard, that were incorrect from the book. But like ultimately, if your goal is to get to the final table, it's not about maximizing EV. It's about lasting in the tournament. So like giving up EV to guarantee that you get further in the tournament becomes a really, really relevant trade-off strategy. The last thing I did was I was like, look, there is going to be circumstances where I am all in, or someone else is all in for a part of my stack, and I have to take these spots, right? I'm not going to pretend there is no like variance or luck or outcome.
Of course, you have to be in it.
So how do I mitigate against that such that the impact of that does not affect me? Well, I have to have more chips. The only way to do that is to have enough chips such that if someone's all in for 30 big blinds and you have 150, that luck does not affect you, because the delta between having 150 bigs and 120 bigs doesn't affect the value of your stack or your playability.
So you can be in that situation.
I can be.
I take you out.
Right. I allow myself to be in that situation. So I had to look for spots, and I had to adjust my strategy and my image so that I can pull off moves and accumulate chips without showdown in spots where I would then accumulate chips and be able to use them. So I pulled off like a couple 4 bets in random spots, or 3 bets, or like check raises in certain spots that like I could win. I felt like I could win chips and accumulate to build up those reserves. And so I was always like thinking about that going into the event. So it was a wild journey. It was like, it was a very like humbling approach, an interesting challenge. And I learned a lot, and I realized, there's a lot more that I don't know, because I've never applied this strategy before, or thought about poker in this way, or challenged myself in this way. And so that was really humbling, that it's like, wow, like there's a whole world out there that I haven't explored in myself and my personal journey, my development, and poker. And so it's just like there's always more that I don't know than what I do know.
Yes.
There's always another level. And that was humbling for sure.
And there probably always will be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the last thing you said that I made you kind of say differently, because that's what I heard you say, but I wanted you to say it how you said it the second time. And that is a lot of poker players, and I guess this would apply mostly to tournaments. And I have to tell you, I honestly believe this applies to cash in some cases. So here's what I'm saying. So like in the tournament, you're saying a lot of poker players will win a spot and they'll go, I have no choice.
I have no choice.
I have no choice. This is what I'm supposed to do. I have no choice.
Right.
But you do have a choice.
Right.
And like you said, because of the reason you're doing it to survive and to get to the next level, you do have a choice. And this, you may reject this because you're a very good cash player, top of your field, the whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of times I hear the same thing too, like, you know, people listening to the commentators, or you hear people talking, oh, well, you know, yeah, you got a call, you're getting this right price. Oh, you got, you know, you only have to win one out of blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And, you know, so I really don't have a choice. And this is what I'm supposed to do here. Is I've never agreed with that. I've always kind of rejected it, but I kind of reject it in the closet because I don't want to be corrected. You know
it's
what I mean?
It's a little taboo.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe it. Like,
yeah. I know, and I agree with you, and I feel like the times in my life where I've gone through this mental gymnastics of I have to science, math, GTO, it all, and it's just I always regret
over
it.
time.
Right,
you have the 4% edge if you just hey, look,
it's like an 80% regret ratio.
I don't want to leave here stuck 70K, and I know that says that, but like
the spot is wrong.
The spot's wrong, and my instincts tell me no.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose the money. Why should I lose the money just because it's the right thing to do? And I have people argue that with me. And like I said, I'm very reluctant to say it because I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to be wrong.
It's just like, it's kind of more about whether you fundamentally believe poker's a science or it's an art. I believe poker's a little bit more of an art. That's kind of the way I see the world.
That's where I come from.
And so I come from that place. And so I think to myself, like, I'm not going to accept that I have to go broke in this spot. So I had ace king twice on either day 5 or day 6. And one of the spots, if I 4-bet and he jammed, I would have called and I would have lost because he had a pair and he backdoored a flush. Instead, I flatted and I lost the pot, but I lost a lot smaller of a pot. So I wasn't out of the tournament or crippled. The next hand I 4-bet, I had a ace king suited and the guy jammed on me and I just folded.
Yeah.
And like, it was probably correct to call it off. He had aces. So like, I'm not saying that, I'm saying versus his range versus the field versus like the math of not being exploitable GTO, what the solver would do is correct to call it off. But at the same time, I put in 1.2 million. I had a $5 million stack. And I was just like, I refuse to bust here. Like, this is not how I'm going out of the main. I don't need to call it off here. And like, I might be, I don't think I'm being exploited by his like jamming range, knowing that I'm folding ace king because people don't know that. And I'm typically not folding ace king for my tournament life. Like, that's not a play I'm going to make. So even if I tell the audience that, just going to 5-bet me every time, it's not going to work that way. But it's like, even if he was exploiting me, even if he knew that I was exploiting, it's like one spot in an isolated situation in a vacuum on day 6. I'm never going to play with this guy again in this spot, in this situation with this stack size and this stack depth. It's like, who cares? Like, this is not the spot I need to take.
Yeah.
I folded that hand. I would have busted, or I would have probably been 12%, 9%, 10% to win. And, I made day 8 because of that. So it's like, there was a lot of spots like that happened where I just mentally prepared myself for this 3 months where like, I'm not going to believe in luck. I refuse to like play a standard style.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, get creative. And so obviously a lot of things went right for me to get deep. So I'm not trying to make this whole monologue to say like, everything was
of course
my merit.
Anyone that's been in
100%, a lot of things went right, but it's basically my fundamental belief that, what Seneca said, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. So it was like, how can I reduce all of the luck and maximize the preparation? And that's sort of my takeaway from,
it all has to come together.
That's my takeaway from, I hope people understand that's my takeaway from this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, how can I prepare in a way that I've never prepared in my whole life such that I create the luck? That was my goal going into the main.
Yeah. I want to go, very true. And that just has to be so exciting, but and we're going to get to more of that, but let's regress a little bit on this. And because I think it's good if there's there's a lot of poker players that are listening to this that are 10 times better poker player than me. You don't have to pay attention to this if you don't feel like it, but there are some players that are up and coming and they are being taught the GTO and the this, and I have no choice. And I got a 2% edge and blah, blah, that bullshit. Right.
Right.
Okay. Perfect example. Last night I'm playing in the ante game. and I have Ludacris to my left and Lingland to his left.
Got it.
Both lunatics.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know in different positions what the machine says that I should do 84% of the time is raise here, 3-bet, do this. But what I did was last night, instead of putting myself in a position to, like, and we're in a 5-hour, 6-hour sample size. So this isn't a 600-hour sample. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, how do I leave here with more chips than I came with?
Yeah.
And
Correct.
my strategy
Correct.
was, because that's what I like to do. I know it's one long game. Like, it never ends and you got to look at it the way, and you do. You can't be results oriented and all that shit. But when I play, I want to leave with more chips than I come with, because it's competition and I like having more chips. So what I said to myself last night, and this doesn't always work out, is, okay, these lunatics are to my left. I know I'm supposed to 3-bet here. I know I'm supposed to bring this in. And in the ante game, when you're in early position, your hand ranges go, they lose value because whatever. So I take everything that I'm supposed to do, and I literally do the opposite, knowing that I'm going to let him 3-bet. Now, if I want to put a 4-bet in, I will, even if I have a huge hand. Like, there's a couple times in really early position or late position where people are calling.
Yeah.
And I know if I just call and
someone else comes in.
And then, I got like 6 people. I know lunatic in position is going to make it 4,000 to
Right.
try to win all those like $300, times whatever, right? And so that's what I did. I call. I don't raise with queens and whatever, because I know he's going to try
Right.
to do that. He puts his 4,000 in, 5,000 in. Now I make a 12,000. So what I'm trying to say is, I know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But in certain situations, like to your point, like, my goal was to leave with more chips, and I left with 18,000 more chips than I started with. But that may not have happened if I did what the solver says to do.
Yeah, and the solver comes from a fundamental standpoint of, hey, if the other player is playing perfect and I need, minimum
How
defense
fucking often
frequencies.
does that happen?
Right, and we're going to play a billion hands
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And if I don't call in this spot, they're going to win money from me long term.
Right.
So it's taking all of these assumptions, then in a sample size of most people's life or poker game or individual vacuum of one session, one tournament, one final table, one cash game
Right.
session where they're on vacation in a different country that they're never going to go back to against the same players. None of those things actually apply. So taking the fundamental first principles from how a solver thinks about poker and applying them to your game in a macro framework where the elements aren't the same, right? The variables aren't the same.
Yeah.
Your goals aren't the same goals as the solver. Your goal isn't to
And they're
be
never going to be the same each time you sit down, because it's a different mixture and formula and recipe every single time.
right. The solver, I guess you could think about a solver as its objective is to score the highest on a test,
That's it.
right?
Yeah.
So like it's kind of trying to think about poker in terms of like, how am I the smartest player, but not how am I the most practical
Yeah.
player?
That's what I believe. It's a template, so you know what the math is.
Right.
You know what the best score is, but now you have to take the test according to this person, that person, this, who's stuck. And so I just think it's a very beginning template. And
True.
if you just put too much into it and you play like that, I don't get it.
I think you have to know the theory. So I always tell
Yeah.
clients, and like people think I'm like anti-solver. It's not.
No,
the case.
you have to know it.
I study the solver. I know all the I know in a spot I'm supposed to open this hand here, or I'm not supposed to open this hand here, but I'm going to deviate from that strategy because. And I believe you have to have both levels. You have to know what the rules are, but you have to know when and why to break the rules.
That's right.
If you're not breaking the rules in a live poker game, you either don't know what you're doing or you're in the wrong poker game. So if
That's
you're in a
what I'm saying.
game where you can't break the rules, you're in the wrong game because it
Yeah.
means you're against 8 GTO bots. Why are you playing there in the first place? So it's like there's not a situation in which deviating from the solver is not the higher EV strategy in a poker game.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to know the rules. You have to know why you should be betting, and you have to fall back on the solver when you don't know what to do. So if you don't know what to
Agreed.
do, and you are like, I have absolutely no external information here about how to make a different decision that's better than the solver,
Yeah, then you got to go with the
then,
math.
then you go with the math.
Yeah.
Fine. And that's what you should do. So you have to know the math.
Yeah, totally.
But like
agree.
to your point, if a guy is going absolutely ballistic, why would you call with the frequency the solver calls? Why would you bluff with the frequency the
Sure.
solver bluffs?
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a really interesting thing about the main too, is just that like, how do I play the game on my terms? So there's this mindset of a cash game player that you have to take every single EV spot because you have an unlimited bankroll, right? You're always having a big enough, or you should always have a big enough bankroll for the games you're playing, such that if a situation is plus EV, you're going to commit to that situation because you can afford to rebuy and you could continually rebuy. And therefore, any EV that's profitable is worth taking. That's the mindset of a cash game. That's the EV basically breakdown of a cash game. But I was thinking to myself in the tournament, I only have one life, right? Like I can't rebuy in this event. So the goal is not to take all of the EV, it's to take the best of the EV. So that means I have to consciously know what the threshold is of EV that I'm going to give up. And there's not an exact formula, but if the situation is all of my stack of 100 big blinds and the EV is one big blind, well, obviously I'm not going to take that risk reward. In a cash game, I might take it. If someone puts me all in for 10K and I can make $500, I'll take the risk because I could afford the 10K and I get $500 in EV. Sure, I'll take the risk. But in a tournament, I'm not going to do that because gaining chips doesn't help me as much as losing chips hurts me. And so therefore, there's spots where I have to play a strategy where I'm going to let another player win a pot against me. And so I always try to put myself in a spot where I'm playing the game that I want to play. So I'm in position, I have the lead, I have the range advantage, I'm controlling the tempo of the hand. If I'm out of position, they're aggressive, they're re-raising, they have the range advantage, they're betting, I'm completely out of my comfort zone. Like I'm in a spot where I don't have a big edge.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this spot. I'm going to avoid that situation at all costs. I'm going to maximize the situations that I control where I want to play the game on my tempo. And that was just my MO in the whole time.
That is exactly, like I said, exactly spot on to yesterday. If you really watched what was going on, it
Totally.
was like, what is he doing? But I know what I was doing because just like that, like I can't play it this way. How about when you're studying the, I work with MJ Gonzalez with Hybrid, and I use their machine, and and
it's great,
fucking awesome.
It's amazing.
You've seen it?
Yeah. I've talked to MJ. I've seen Hybrid, and it's
go to Hybrid and sign up for their machine. So, anyways. But it's just funny to me sometimes because, and I memorize it. I do my best. Like you got to know the math and you have to know what's right to do it. Like you say, default, but it's just like, how about the ones where it's like 30, it tells you 33% of the time you call, 28% of the time you fold, and this many times you raise, and
10% of the time you go all in or something.
Yeah, and I look at it, I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. If you look at how you're actually supposed to play in certain spots, like with Hybrid and stuff, there's certain spots where you're supposed to bet like 4x the pot, and it just does all these crazy random things to keep it balanced. And so poker doesn't actually play like that, of course.
The nice thing about those guys in their training, and I should say the amazing thing about them is they understand that as well as what we're saying and better. And so we learn it, I learn it, but then there's like 9 other steps of why that sometimes is just not even effective.
Learning how to apply it
and why to apply it and all this and different things. And so that's the beauty of that, like why I think we play poker, because it's like we said earlier, like I don't think you'll ever have a layer that you don't need to get to next. Right?
Yeah, there's always another level because you could always become better as a person. And it's like how capable you are as an individual translates into how well you play as a player.
I'll never be able to be a better person, but I'm really hoping to be a better poker player.
Maybe that's not the right word.
I'm screwing around.
You're right, but you're right.
No, it's just a joke. I believe you'll probably try to be a better person. I'm just messing around.
But that implies like, I guess what I'm saying is like character development, like being more disciplined. If you're a more disciplined person in life, you'll become a better player. So it's like if you level up your character, it translates into how well you can play the game. And because of that, there's always another level because you can never have true self-mastery. Well, you can never be completely zen, completely indifferent to results. Like there's always something you can do to get better. And obviously strategy-wise too, there's always another level.
And you said that like discipline, what I've often like will tell people, and I've had to learn myself is, any kind of success in life, I don't care what it is, business, it's really all discipline. Because like, for example, a lot of people will like say they want to get their life better. They want to they want to get in shape, or they want to do this, or they want to whatever. And people get hyped up and they watch motivational stuff and they come from a seminar and whatever, but motions wear off. And most people that like are in the gym and they just look amazing, they didn't want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That morning.
Absolutely.
They went out of discipline. And sometimes you don't want to get out of bed early, or you don't want to do this, but you do it out of discipline, and then the results come later. You're never going to always want to do the right thing.
Yeah. And so I actually, I really believe, strong body, strong mind. And I think one of the things about poker is that a lot of it is mental, especially on an 8-day, 10-day journey. Playing 100 hours in 8 days when you're not sleeping. We should talk. Just talk about that. It was bananas how demanding the schedule is on your body and mind. And so a lot of my training was the mental side and the physical side and the practical side. So I was 169, 170 pounds. I got down to like 157 during the main. I probably lost 5 pounds during the main, but we'll talk about that. But I got down to like 160 before the main, 162, whatever. I didn't exactly weigh myself, but I lost like about 10 pounds before the main in the summer in the gym. And so there was a lot of days where I was telling myself, okay, like the extent to which I can control my mind through physical activity is the extent to which I could be resilient when I face an adversity at the main event. So all of my training in the gym in the summer, it's very hot in Italy in the summer. They don't use air conditioning. So going to the gym is quite punitive. It's like about 90 degrees with 90% humidity, 95 degrees, 5% humidity, but there's no air in the gym. There's no air conditioning in the gym. So lifting is like incredibly difficult. And so I was like, this is great because the more challenging of a physical exertion I could have, the stronger I could be mentally, because I have to mentally tell myself I'm going to pick up this bar and deadlift 250 because that is the most challenging thing I could do. And I have to like have mind over matter. And that's what you have to do at the poker table, because if there's ever a moment in which, you know, your body's in control of your mind, you're out of control. Like if you are reactive to what's happening to you, you're out of control. You're going to run straight into the iceberg instead of go around it. So I did a lot of that preparation. And I found, to your point, the days that I most didn't want to go to the gym, I demanded that I go to the gym.
Discipline.
I took days off when I was like, I really feel like going to the gym, because I knew that I wasn't slacking mentally. So there was a day in which I didn't, you know, have a lot of time. I was very tired and it was raining outside, and I biked to the gym in the rain because I told this was an exercise that I was not going to let anything stop me from my goal. And so I knew that was going to take that with me to the main event. There's nothing that's going to stop me from getting deep in this tournament. I don't believe in luck. So I'm not going to let the rain stop me from going to the gym, just like I'm not going to let losing a big pot stop me from getting deep in the main. So like everything I was doing, and this is, you know, maybe a little extreme, but like I had an extreme goal to beat 10,000 other people, you know? So like I felt like I had to do some serious psyching up to get to this point where I was like, you know, I'm not going to let anything stop me from getting the way I wanted to go. So the most of my training and the mental side and the physical side was in the gym. And it was very fun because it was like, how hard can I push myself? You know,
well,
it was a fun challenge.
Let's do this too. And then I'll let you take it back from here. I'll set you up and you could go from here. For those who are watching that have never played the main event, and I've only played 3 times, once a billion years ago, but really last year and this year.
Yep.
And I will say this, as far as to the point of being physically and obviously mentally strong, especially physically strong, because when you start to lose bandwidth physically, mentally you start to lose your thought process. You get tired or you're fatigued and you can't think as well. And for those of you who haven't played, it's pretty crazy. Like, you know, you start at noon, and then you go for how many hours, whatever. You can micro it if you want, and then you get a break, and literally the whole time you're spending on the break is trying to take a leak.
Oh my God.
Because all the lines, there's only like the men's bathroom, it's all men, and so like 15-minute break, you really don't get a break. You're just trying to pee, right? And then if you don't have your own snacks with you and everything else, there's nowhere to go get it in enough time to get it.
And there's nothing healthy to get.
And or you got to eat a hot dog.
Right.
And so that's not, you know, whatever. So those are challenges. And then you get like the lunch, and then again, there's nowhere to eat and all the lines for everything. And you come back. Anyways, you do this all the way from 12 noon to 12 midnight.
At least.
You get an hour and some change for dinner. And again, you're just like, whatever. And as you come back, you're like stuck in this hallway of like massive people trying to get back to their table. So the point is, then you go to bed, and you're probably, even though you're exhausted, you're probably on a little bit of something, so you don't fall asleep till 1, 2, whatever. You get back up, and if you want to get back up and you want to work out or you want to get something to eat, you got to wake up earlier, so you're only in a handful of hours or less of sleep. Then you got to do the whole process again and again, and you did it for 8 days. And then of course the mental exhaustion is even getting more pressure. So there you go. Anything you want to add to it? But that's my takeaway, is I hated it.
So there's something we talk about a few things here. Thank you for the setup.
Yeah.
This sounds superficial, but you brought up the point too, and I talked to a lot of people about this. The arguably the worst part about the Paris, I love the Paris side is better for this particular reason. Yeah. I like it being there more than I like the Rio, but the narrowness of the hallway on the horseshoe creates a situation in which 3,000 people are trying to get through a hallway, and you like, I'm sensitive to smoke. I'm sure, you know, a lot of people are.
Yeah.
So outside of that hallway, there's vape, there's cigarette, there's weed. There's a cloud of smoke, which you're not supposed to smoke. But you're walking. It's like going through an airport security line through a narrow corridor for 10 minutes in a cloud of smoke when you only have 20. So I actually had to find a bathroom that people weren't going to. And it was like very back around down.
Oh, that's
But by the time you do that and back, especially if you talk to someone on the break, we talked on the break a few times, you know, there's interviews, there's other things like that. You're spending 15 minutes out of 20 and hoping to get done going to the peeing, right? Like that's the objective.
It's your main goal. Let's
Right.
just take a leak.
So you might have 3, 4, 5 minutes of the main to really recenter yourself.
Right.
Right. So I would do jump squats. There was like, again, I found a hidden bathroom and I went to the side over there and I would do jump squats and stuff like that to keep my blood flowing. But I would also have to time the frequency to which I drank water such that I didn't have to go to the bathroom until.
Right. Yeah. So you kind of go dehydrate a little bit because if you drink too much, you go to the bathroom and you're missing blinds.
Right. And so that alone was a challenge. But like just to kind of explain the micromanaging of all of these things that have to go right for you to, you know, be at the highest level during the main was very challenging. And I thought it was fun because it was like this tweak of optimization, which was a fun challenge. But I think the bigger point is just how grueling the 8 days are. So I did something, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I actually played day 1C of the main because I played day 2A. And after day 2A, I got a day off before day 3. Whereas if you play day 1D, you play day 2B. And then after day 2B, you have day 3 right away. And I knew, because I was going to the final table in my head, that I was going to play 9, 10 days of poker. And I knew that I wasn't going to have a break till after day 8. And I thought to myself, on day 8, everyone that played day 1D is going to be paying for it because they're going to have one less day off that I had on day 2 in between day 3. So starting with the engineering of which day I was going to play, it was all about how can I preserve myself and be at the best state of mind, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to be playing the best poker for 8 days. But the grueling thing was what you said was I was up at about 9 a.m. So let's say you play noon to midnight, right? It usually goes later than midnight. It goes 12:30 because they have the ceremonies that delay. They get delayed in the starting.
Oh, yeah. You're not to your room. Yeah.
They have to color up. You have to bag your chips.
Oh yeah.
They have announcements. You have to figure out where your table draw is. So you're done at 12:31. The day that we did the money bubble, we were done at like 1:32 because the money bubble went hand for hand. It took an hour and a half.
Totally.
So you're done at, let's say, 1 o'clock, right? So it's a 13-hour day. And then you're like, I mean, day 1, you're not necessarily jacked on adrenaline. You're day 1 out of 10 days of the main. You're like, whatever. But day 6, day 5, day 6, day 7, there's, 40, 50 people left. You realize, like you said, when did you realize you could win the main? Like you're starting to think, people are starting to message you. I had more messages during that time and I'm grateful for it. Thank you everyone that messaged me. I'm incredibly grateful. I had more messages during the main than I've ever had in my life. So an hour of my time in the morning was spent, just like consumed with this.
Thanks. Hello. Thanks.
So you're jacked on adrenaline at 1, 2 a.m. It's very hard to just go from 10 to 0, which is the state you need to be in to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So maybe you go to sleep at 2:30 some days. I'm not sleeping amazing because my mind is spinning. You start to see poker hands in your sleep, as a lot of people imagine when you play a lot of poker, you dream about poker. So you maybe get up at 9. I want to meditate. I want to work out like we talked about. Also, as we got deeper in the tournament, you want to see your table draw to see who's to your left so you can adapt your strategy based on the chip stacks and the quality of the players to your left and right. So I might have spent a half hour looking up my table draw, and so
where would you look that up on the WSOP website?
Exactly.
I didn't even know that.
So you can see the table draw. And day 2, does it really matter? Not really. I mean, 100 big blinds D day, but day 6, day 7, it starts to matter.
Yeah.
So as you get deeper in the tournament, you're more fatigued. And the real challenge for me came on day 7 because I went to bed late. I was top 5 in chips with 49 left. I was completely jacked on adrenaline. Day 6, I played one of the best days I've ever played. I was so focused and my diet was so on point. I was eating so well. I had so much energy. I was breaking up my dinner into 2 sections to not eat too much food. I was fasting during the day. I was bringing juice with me in a cooler to the event so I could have, hydration and nutrients without being lethargic, eating too much food. So I was doing all this stuff to optimize everything. And day 7, I barely slept. And it just caught up with me. I woke up and I knew I wasn't at my best. And it was just extremely challenging and grueling in a way that, even playing the long hours of 36 hours in Macau, where we played from 10 a.m. to, noon the next day or whatever. And I was up for 30 hours playing high stakes poker in Macau. That was hard. But after that session, you would have 2 days before the next session. So I could recover.
Yeah.
But the consecutive nature of 8 days in a row was it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I almost feel like we should have a day off after day 6.
Yeah.
Because it's just I
think so.
That many days in a row is very tough.
Yeah, I tell you, I only made it to the, the end of day 3 before the money, and I was exhausted. I really was. I was
Yeah.
exhausted. Now I didn't do all the shit you did. I wasn't doing jumping jacks and squats and
Yeah.
looking my table. Honestly, like you deserve to get where you got.
Thank
because
you.
There's a lot of prep. Me, there was no prep. I got on JSX. I flew in. I bought my ticket. I showed
Nice.
up the next day. I had a breakfast burrito, and I didn't give 2 fucks who was at my table. So that's why you were 11th, and I was 90 millionth. So that's good.
Well, there's
And
some
plus I
preparation.
suck.
There's definitely some luck.
And plus, I suck.
There's definitely
I have
some
no
luck.
idea what I'm doing in a tournament.
So it was wild, man. And I was thinking, I was like, I was in the gym, I was prepping, I was doing sprints in the gym so that I could mimic the emotional ups and downs I would go through during a hand of poker. Because when you're sprinting at a high level, your heartbeats, you're really fast, you're exerting a lot of mental energy, and then you walk and you rest. So I was thinking to myself, okay, if I sprint at level 10 for 30-minute intervals and 30 minutes of intervals, then I would mimic what I'm doing when I play a hand of poker, and then I rest when I'm not playing. So you're training your heart rate to go up and down. So I was thinking about all this stuff, and I was thinking, like, I could have prepared more. I could have been in better shape.
How could you have prepared more?
I should have done
You're
something
thinking about
different.
the intervals. I mean,
It's my fault that I was not at my best on day 7, and I've been thinking a lot about how I'm going to change next year. But I was thinking, like, the people that aren't doing this, like, have to be very tired. So I was thinking, like,
yeah,
the 8 days in a row is very grueling, and that's why I thought maybe a break after day 6 would have been the right move, given like the level and the stakes of the play. It's less exciting from a viewership standpoint to have a break after day 6 and a break after day 8, but it's like, that was wild. And they added an extra day this year, so it was supposed to be in the past 7 days, so this year became 8 days, so that changed the dynamic too.
Yeah, was the final table 6?
9.
So they did start.
They combined to 10.
They did,
and then they keep playing until 9, and then those 9 go to the.
Did you want to puke that you were a couple away from the actual final table? Maybe not. You don't have to lean into that.
No, that's a totally fair question. That's.
I mean, I know
that's the right question.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you went out in 8th or 9th or whatever, still that sucks. But I don't know, like, just to bust out before that lights go on to the.
So there was, I mean, and it's easy and it's sort of cheap to only look back at the hands you lose and extrapolate that to determine how you could have won, because a lot went right for me to even get to day 8.
Oh, sure.
So I'm grateful for all those hands that I won to get to that point. But given that I was on day 8, there were 2 all-ins ahead of me where the short stack was all in behind and doubled. And had they lost and busted,
you make it.
Right. But also I was all in jacks to ace king. And had I won, I would have, probably made it too. So there were 3 all-ins in a row. And if any of them went a different way, perhaps I would have.
Just a hair trigger.
So it's easy to kind of look back at this, and just kind of let your mind go there. But there's a couple things. Number one is I try and take credit for the W, because I take 100% responsibility for the L. So I believe it's my fault I didn't make the final table. So like, I believe, I could have played differently on day 7. I could play differently on day 8. I could have had more chips to withstand the all-in with the jacks, all those things. So I believe it's 100% my fault. So I'm more looking back at the things that I did different. I could have done differently to have created a different outcome. And so when I look at it from that perspective, there are things I could do to improve. But given that I had never really made the intention of getting deep in a tournament until I busted with Jackson Monaco, going from that point to the outcome of 11th out of 10,000 in 2.5 months is something I have to be proud of. So I take relish in the W that I had, because I take 100% responsibility for the L. And so it's like, it's the dance between, I am my harshest critic. Like when people say, oh, with the king jack, the guy hit a 7, you were 93% on the flop. No, I should have folded the river. Like I should have raised the flop. I should have raised pre-flop. I shouldn't have been in that spot. Like 100% responsibility for the L. I'm my harshest critic by far.
Yeah.
But you also have to live in a situation where you can forgive yourself to move on and get better the next time. So it's that dance between being extremely hard on yourself such that you can improve, and being forgiving of yourself such that you can live with yourself and be, accepting of the fact that you're human and you're not perfect and you can't play perfect for 8 days. And so it's like that dance. And sometimes I go too extreme on the, Alec, you're a prick, you should have won. And sometimes I go too easy on myself of, oh, I got so unlucky. If those 3 all-ins went different, I would have been deeper. So I have to correct myself when I'm out of line. And so that balance is something I strive for, that I'm not perfect with, and it's very challenging. But to answer your question in summary, like, my only intention was to win the main, and so like I would have been the accolade of being at the final table would have been cool. It would have been a great resume. It would have been whatever. But like, I would feel the same way if I got ninth in the sense that honestly, it's almost a harder pill to swallow the closer you are. So I've got second in a WSOP event. I think way more about the second place than the 200th place. So, the closer you get to the W, yes, the more money you get, and yes, the bigger of an accomplishment, but it's the harder, it becomes more bitter on the bittersweet pendulum.
Totally.
So, you know what I mean? There's a dance there. You get more of the upside, but you also get more of the pain.
Totally.
So I don't know how I would have felt, but
yeah. So let me ask you just a dumb question, just because I don't know the answer. Maybe most people do. So like you go to the cashier and you say, I want it in money, I want it in chips.
I get that one.
Wire. Like, tell me, like, what are all the options and how did you take it? I don't know why I want to know that. Like,
I know that's a fair question because it is kind of cool. So I obviously like,
would they give you 700 in bricks?
Right. So for Instagram, obviously, it would have been cool to take the 700.
And would they give it to you?
It's not really my style to post the private jet.
The question is, would they give it to you in cash?
But I think they would.
Okay.
But I went. Obviously, I would never do that. Put myself into security risk, or like it's also just not necessarily my style, whatever. But like I just asked for a wire. Like I went to the cage. So you get a slip, and it's funny because I was in day 2. Josh Ari was at my table, and they used to announce when you bust out. They used to say winner. And imagine busting in the main, and yes, technically you are a winner.
Yeah.
But they used to say winner when you bust.
Yeah.
And you're like, you just busted in 43rd place. Yeah, you won 40,000, but like you're on life tilt, right?
Yeah.
So now they say payout. So they say payout, and they give you a little slip. You go to the thing, they give you a little slip. You have to go to the Paris side. You go into the main cage, and you walk in line. You fill out a little form. They give you a receipt. You go to the cage. They say, congratulations. I just got 11th the main. I won $700,000. They say, how would you like it? You fill out a form, send them your bank details. And it was sort of surreal, like getting up and, looking at my bank. I was like,
did you go look? And
I did, because I did it on a Friday, and it was like Friday late in the afternoon. So the banking thing, the banks was closed, whatever. And they're like, when will the wire be there? And they're like, Monday. And then by then I had kind of like, I was doing other stuff, whatever. It wasn't like first thing Monday morning. I was checking to make sure it was there at 9 a.m. But obviously, I checked my bank statement and I look there, and there's, like a $700,000 wire, and
they really send it.
And then I was like,
it's crazy. Hey guys, they really pay.
That's when
they pay you out.
It kind of hits you that, you also, it was kind of cool that I busted on a Friday and I had till Monday. So I had 2-3 days of healing to kind of get over accept the fact that I had lost.
Yeah.
And then transition to the fact that like, wow, I had actually won. So Monday is when it first hit me that like, oh wow, I actually won. And this, this wasn't an L. I mean, it was an L in my mind, but it was a W in the practical sense of the word. And when you see the wire in your account, $700,000, you're like, oh, okay, this is a W.
It's actually real.
And it was sort of cool that it came 3 days later, so I had time to kind of just only appreciate the W while being over the L.
Yeah, you got both.
Or I got both.
Wait, I was just gonna ask you something. Hold on. Shit. Oh my God, I really wanted to ask you.
Oh no, we'll think of it.
All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you talk until I can think of this, because I wanted to ask you this. Hold on. Oh my God, you talk.
But I think
your sentences are so long. I forgot.
I'm sorry, that's my fault. I think you could take chips, because I remember one time I was at the WPT final table, and I went. There was like a high stakes cash game running, and I took Bellagio chips, and then I went into a high stakes cash game. It was just sort of like I prefer the wire side of things, because it's more like real. It's like, okay, now the money is in. It's out of poker.
Yeah.
And I could bring it back to poker, but it's not like just they give you chips and you go sit into a cash game, and like you don't have time to like digest the W and like recalibrate your mindset and settle down and then play from a perspective of your feet are on the ground.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like if you drink a bunch, 10 days in a row, you don't feel the alcohol in the 11th drink. But if you don't drink for 10 days, you start to feel the buzz. And so I think when you play poker from a perspective of you have an immediate huge L or W, your tolerance has changed for the amount of money you're playing with.
Yeah.
And so it's nice that it goes out of poker, and then if it comes back to poker, I could come back from a grounded perspective of I'm still even, right? You got to get back to that place mentally that you're still even, so you could play from a your feet on the ground.
Yeah, of course.
If you're winning too much, it's a problem, and if you're losing too much, it's a different problem.
Yeah.
So I always want to play from a perspective of I'm even, and I think that's
a good tip.
That's a challenge after you win, and it's a good problem to have after you win. It's a challenging problem to have after you lose, but there is such a thing as winner's tilt. And so, playing like on the Hustler, for example, from the perspective of, hey, I'm up 700,000 and I'm playing with 20,000 is not good, because you're going to play too loose. You're going to bluff too much. You're going to be too arrogant. You're going to play badly. So I have to come back from a humble perspective of, hey,
It's funny you use that number.
Even. Yeah.
That was my number.
Oh, okay.
First year.
Nice.
I remember what I was going to ask
Good.
you. Did you have 100% of yourself?
No. I sold some of myself on Stake Kings. So I made, I think, 35,000 for investors, something like that.
Oh, okay.
So I always want to give, like, I try and give some of my action.
But it's just Stake Kings, no friends, family.
A few, yeah. But I had almost, I had a huge piece. Yeah. So,
how'd you come up with the 10K yourself?
Yeah.
Joke. Go ahead.
Sold Coke cans. But it was cool. Like a friend of mine from a long time ago. And I wanted to give back to people that have like helped me throughout my career, especially in an asymmetric event like the main, where it's like, in a cash game, like the daily wins and losses, it's the ups aren't that big, the downs aren't that big. It's not that meaningful to have a piece. It's just kind of more tedious than anything. But the main's like this one kind of like important, exciting event. So selling on Stake Kings was really cool, because it was just like the asymmetry of some guy sending me $50 and I sent him back, thousands, right? Like, so cool. I had a friend of mine from, maybe 10, 15 years ago, did a lot of favors for me, just a really nice guy, great friend. And it was just like, you know what? I would like that other people are with me, rowing in my direction, that are like, they deserve to be on the train with me, because they're part of the reason that I am where I am. So some part of that, reason I am where I am is my support, my fans, my audience, whatever. And so selling to them on Stake Kings felt right to me. It felt like, you know what, this is a cool thing to do where other people are participating in my upside. And then just giving 1% to a friend of mine that's not in poker at all, never has like equity sweats, doesn't have ups and downs in his life, doesn't gamble, just completely, outside of the gambling world. And, just like, hey, send me $100 on PayPal before this. And he like barely got it into me. I was like, look, no pressure, I don't care. But if you send me $100, you have 1%. So sends me $100. And, I just sent him back $7,000. I was like, what the fuck?
I know. Right?
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not used to that. So like, that was really cool. Like, it's more meaningful to me than having the piece that it is that like, there's joy in other people's journey.
Yeah, that's always fun.
But I'm just settling in, focused on the next step. I'm not, not much.
Do any sponsors or opportunities come with 11th place? Is there any plus EV there, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
fair.
How far does it go down?
Yeah, that's fair. So I would say that I haven't been able to, I've been so busy with everything going on. I haven't been able to like see the long tail effect of what it means.
It might be too soon anyway.
And I think it's just too soon to evaluate. My intuition though is that yes, it will lead to opportunities that come in my life.
Training people?
Yes.
You think that
has already been, it's been very demanding. And also I took multiple weeks off, for the main and the aftermath. And so there's been a backlog of not catching up with the business. And then also the impact of the main.
Yeah. Teach me how to play tournaments.
Yeah. It's been very impactful with the coaching side of things. And I'm really grateful for it. But I've been very busy with requests for coaching. I was more thinking of like long tail things outside of just directly having a coaching business that would impact in other ways as well, like perhaps business opportunities or interview types of things. I mean, we're doing an interview today because I got 11th in the main, right? So how many things like this are going to transpire over the years? I got other interview requests that I'm going on in August and beyond.
Nice.
So it's like hard to say the long tail. My intuition is yes, and that's really cool. It's really cool. I'm like grateful for the opportunity and to be able to share the journey. And hopefully, my thing was like, what I realized in the main was just having a digital presence and having a brand and being at my best was inspiring to other people. I had more people reaching out to me and sending me positive messages that were encouraging and inspiring. And I see that other people were inspired through my journey. And that was really inspiring for me. And it was like, okay, look, if I could be at my best, there's a butterfly effect of me being at my best. So I believe there's like a duty for myself to be at my best if it could have this butterfly effect on this many people that have reached out to me that have been inspired by my journey. If I inspire someone 1% to be a little bit better, and I do that 100 times, that's 100 times one, whatever. So if I could do that at a bigger level, that's really helpful. So it's like that's a net positive in society. And poker is a zero-sum game, but your impact on society is not zero-sum. So it's like, hey, if I could be the best player I can be, and I can perform at a high level, and that inspires other people to do, even if it doesn't transpire to them being better at poker. We all take inspiration from like athletes, right? I watch a lot of athletes, and I watch a basketball player, and then I translate that to poker. So if someone could watch poker and translate that to anything in their life, that's a huge net positive. So I'm really grateful for the preparation and the outcome, because hopefully that my sharing my journey can inspire other people to be like, hey, I'm gonna, if I prepare and work hard too, I can have these results in what I want to do in life. And that, that net positive has downstream effects. And so I'm grateful for the interview opportunities and stuff like that, because that could be a net positive with the brand.
Am I your first? Did you do an interview before me?
So I did one with
to know about.
No, this is the first like long form. I mean, I did some at the WSOP.
I got it. That's fair. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. That was another thing about the WSOP prep too, is that like you had to be there at noon, but day 6, day 7, I did an interview with CBS.
Yeah.
So you have to be there 45 minutes early.
I know.
So it's like,
I don't know, but I've heard.
So that was the other interview. I cheated on you a little bit. I did an interview with them during the main.
You got to do that.
But
CBS.
But this was the first one. So thank you. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So okay. So here's the last thing I'll say to you is, do you have anything else? That's all I have for you. Is anything else you want to leave anyone with? And then I am going to close it.
I think that in my life, like the times that I've pursued something for the sake of pursuing it, I've had the best outcome. And so the times that I've really been motivated by the process and the purpose, and by being at my best, and the creative aspect of the endeavor, and the journey itself, if I look back at the main event, the 11th place outcome is bittersweet. Like I said, there's almost a lot of challenge and difficulty that comes with accepting that outcome, given that I was so close. But the journey was the true magic for me. Like the journey of the struggle. Like I remember the day that I biked to the gym in the rain, and it was, then it became 40 degrees Celsius, and I'm deadlifting, I'm sweating my balls off, and it's like super hot. So like the pain of the journey was really the high. And so the times in my life that I've pursued things for the art and the purity and the joy of pursuing it, I've enjoyed it the most. Yeah. But I've also had the best results. And I know that if I had gone into the main with this superficiality of I want the prize, I want the money, I want the glory, I want the ego, I want the impact, I wouldn't have had the outcome. It was because I went through the journey of the main, driven by the process and driven by being at my best, and driven by the 16-year-old in me that wanted to achieve that dream. So it was like a pure intention that I had the outcome. And I think that's a really important takeaway that I learned, is just like when I'm in alignment with my true self, when you're following your heart and you're going the right direction in life, even if on paper, if you run it through the solver of life, it doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. If you tell someone, hey, it's May, I just busted the tournament in Monaco, I'm going to dedicate the next 2.5 months of my life to making a deep run in the main, they would say, well, that doesn't make sense from an EV standpoint, because your buy-in is 10,000. Your EV on that buy-in is 100x, 100% ROI if you're one of the best players. And so the EV is that 10,000. Your hourly rate for all this time you're spending is so small, it's not worth it. You should be doing other things.
It spits out, go play Hustler.
It says go play Hustler.
Yeah.
But when you follow your heart and you're doing something for the purity of doing it, that's when the greatest things have happened in my life. And so this was a reinforcement of that belief in my life, that a lot of times in my life, I'm out of alignment. I do something because I should. I do it because the solver of life says you should do it. And a lot of people have this sort of dichotomy between what they feel like they should do, the career they feel like they should go into, the career their parents and their family and society wants, versus what they know they actually truly want deep down inside.
Yeah.
And so this was a reinforcement for me in life, that when I follow the true intention of what I believe is right for my life and my heart and my joy and my passion, even if it doesn't make sense through the solver of life, that's when the best things happen to me. And so for me, this was really a reinforcement of that. And the process was really the high. And I look back on this experience, it was the struggle that was almost as, if not more enjoyable than the surrealness of being in the moment, because I put the intention on it so much earlier, that it allowed me to enjoy the moment and just be there and be like, fuck, dude, this is truly incredible. So it really was a dream come true, even though I didn't win.
Yeah, it's funny. When I ever talk about success principles, if I just ever bring it up, one of the things I always talk about is what you said, and that is society wants to put you in a box. They want you to take step 1, 2, and 3 in that order. And, I caught a lot of shit when I decided not to go to college. And, I'm K through 12 education.
Wow. Yeah.
Knew,
same.
Yeah. And I knew that wasn't my route. I knew that everyone was telling me that. Everyone was trying to put the fear in me. I was going to waste my life in this. But I knew I needed to start a business. I knew I needed to be my own clock. And thank God that I didn't listen
good for you.
to what everyone said. So, okay. So with that said, see it, believe it, map it, and execute.
I love that.
Just like Alec Torelli did in the main 11th place finish. He is 700,000 pounds heavier than he was even cut up before the event. He's gained that weight back and then some, but in a good way. It all went to his breasts and ass, and that's good. Oh, no, you're a guy. Okay, that's bad. Anyways, this is the Nick Vertucci Show.
Thanks, guys. Much love, everybody.
I am Nick Vertucci for Alec Torelli, and be out.